Who's at the door? Madam, can't you see it's already too late?
The knock on Elias Grant's door didn't stop, came hard, urgent, like whoever stood outside refused to leave without changing his life. Elias opened it halfway, eyes tired, voice rough. "What is it?" Marion Cole pushed the door wider before he could resist. "I need 5 minutes." "I don't." "You do." Her voice cut clean through his hesitation. 3 small figures stood behind her, silent in the cold. Elias frowned. "No, you haven't even heard me. I don't need to." "You do," she repeated, softer now. "Because if you don't, they get separated tonight." That word, separated, hung heavy. The tallest girl stepped forward slightly. Her eyes were sharp, guarded. "We can stand outside," she said. "We're used to it." Elias looked at her. Something inside him shifted. "What are your names?" he asked. "Lena," she said. "This is Mara and Ivy." The smallest clutched a torn piece of fabric and stared at the ground. Marion stepped in. "Their mother passed. Their father ran. No one will take all 3. You're the only one who hasn't said no." "I didn't say yes either." "Then say it now." Silence stretched. Elias looked at the empty space behind him, then back at the girls. "Come in," he said. That was the moment everything changed. If you're watching this, hit subscribe right now because stories like this don't come often, and you don't want to miss what happens next. They didn't speak much the first night. Elias made food. Lena barely touched hers. Mara pushed the plate away. Ivy held hers like it might disappear. "You can eat," Elias said gently. "We're not staying," Mara replied. Elias didn't argue. "You still need to eat." Lena looked at him. "How long do people usually keep us?" Elias didn't answer immediately. "I don't know." "Exactly," Mara muttered. Later that night, Elias sat in the dark, staring at the wall. 3 kids slept under his roof. 3 lives depending on a man who barely believed in tomorrow. Then a sound broke the silence. A small voice. He stepped into the hallway and opened the door. Ivy sat up, shaking. "She forgot me." "Who?" "My mom." Elias moved slowly and sat beside her. "She didn't forget you." "Then why didn't she come back?" He swallowed. "You're safe tonight," he said. She stared at him. "Promise." "I promise." From that night on, those words became routine. Every night, every single night. "You're safe tonight." Weeks turned into months. The house changed. Not all at once. Slowly. Lena started helping with chores without being asked. Mara still argued, but less. Ivy began to smile. Just a little. One evening, Mara threw a shoe across the room. "I hate this place." Elias didn't raise his voice. "Why?" "Because it's fake," she shouted. "You're pretending to care. Everyone does that before they leave." Elias looked at her calmly. "I'm not leaving." "Everyone says that." "I'm not everyone." Silence. Mara's breathing slowed. "You don't even know us," she said quietly. Elias nodded. "Then help me learn." That night, Mara didn't slam her door. It was a small victory, but it mattered. Winter came hard that year. One afternoon, Ivy disappeared. Elias noticed first. "Where's Ivy?" Lena froze. "She was right here." Mara's face went pale. "She said she saw something outside." Elias was already moving. The snow hit like knives against his skin as he searched. "Ivy!" he shouted. "Ivy!" No answer. Minutes felt like hours. Then, a faint sound. He turned. There she was, curled behind a broken fence, shivering. Elias rushed forward. "I've got you." "I thought I saw her," Ivy whispered. "Who?" "My mom." Elias picked her up. "You saw me. I was scared." "I know. You still came." "I always will." That night, Elias collapsed with fever. Days passed. The girls stayed by his side. Lena handled everything. Mara didn't complain once. Ivy held his hand. "Don't go," she whispered. Elias forced a weak smile. "Not going anywhere." Something changed after that. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were becoming a family. Months later, Elias sat at the table with paperwork. Lena watched him. What is that? He hesitated. Adoption forms. Silence. Mara frowned. Why? Because I want this to be permanent. Ivy's eyes lit up. Forever. Elias nodded. Lena didn't smile, but her shoulders dropped. Okay, she said. Felt like hope. And that's exactly when everything began to fall apart. If you're still watching, comment family below, because what happens next will test everything they've built. A black car pulled up outside one morning. Elias knew it wasn't good. Marian stepped out, along with a woman dressed in elegance and authority. This is Evelyn Drake, Marian said. The woman stepped forward. I'm their grandmother. Lena stiffened. Mara crossed her arms. Ivy hid behind Elias. I'm here to take my granddaughters home. Elias's jaw tightened. They are home. Not legally. The battle had begun. Elias stepped forward, placing himself between the girls and Evelyn Drake. They're not going anywhere, he said, voice steady. Evelyn's expression didn't change. You don't get to decide that. I've been deciding it every day since they got here. That doesn't make you their father. Lena grabbed Mara's hand. Ivy clung to Elias's shirt. Marian exhaled quietly. There's going to be a hearing. Elias didn't look away from Evelyn. Then we'll go to court. Evelyn gave a small, almost polite smile. Good. That smile carried certainty. Not hope. Not doubt. Certainty. And Elias felt it. The kind that comes from money, influence, and a system that rarely bends. If you're watching right now, pause for a second, hit like, because this is where everything changes. The days that followed were heavier than anything Elias had faced before. Not louder, not more chaotic, just heavier. Lena stopped asking questions. Mara got quieter. Ivy started sleeping closer to his door. One night, Lena spoke up. If they take us, will you come get us? Elias didn't answer immediately. I'll try, he said. That's not the same, she replied. No, he admitted. It's not. Mara looked at him. Then say you will. Elias swallowed. I will do everything I can. Silence. It wasn't the answer they wanted, but it was the truth. The courtroom felt colder than the winter outside. Elias sat on one side. Evelyn Drake sat on the other. Her lawyer spoke first. My client is financially stable, owns multiple properties, and is the biological grandmother of the children. Elias's lawyer, overworked, underpaid, adjusted his papers. Mr. Grant has provided consistent emotional care, stability, and has kept the siblings together. The judge listened, but Elias could already feel where it was going. Then Lena stood up. I want to say something. The courtroom shifted. The judge nodded. Go ahead. Lena stepped forward, voice shaking but strong. He's the one who stayed. Silence. He didn't have to. Nobody made him. Nobody paid him. Nobody even believed in him. She looked at Evelyn. You didn't come before. Evelyn's face remained composed. Lena turned back to the judge. He's the only father we've had. Mara stepped forward too. I used to hate him, she admitted, because I thought he'd leave like everyone else. She looked at Elias. He didn't. Ivy held onto the edge of the stand. He says we're safe every night, she whispered. Elias closed his eyes. That was it. That was everything. The truth spoken in the only way that mattered. For a moment it felt like it might be enough. But the system doesn't run on moments. It runs on rules. And rules don't always care about love. The judge returned with the decision. The room held its breath. Given the financial security and biological connection, Elias felt it before the words finished. Custody is awarded to Evelyn Drake. Ivy's hand slipped from his. Mara shook her head. No. Lena didn't move. Elias sat there, still, silent, like the world had just pulled something out of his chest and left nothing behind. Outside the courthouse, the air felt empty. Ivy ran back to him. You said you'd come. Elias knelt down. I will. Promise. His voice broke slightly. I promise. Mara looked at him, eyes burning. Then don't be late. Lena stepped forward last. She didn't cry. She just hugged him. Tight. Longer than anything else. Thank you, she whispered. Elias couldn't speak. He just held on. Then they were gone. Just like that. No noise. No warning. Just gone. The house went silent again. But this time, it wasn't the same silence as before. This one was louder, heavier, colder. Elias sat at the table that night. For plates. 3 untouched. 1 empty. He didn't move them. Not that night. Not the next. Not for a long time. Weeks turned into months. No calls. No visits. Every time Elias reached out, there was a reason. They're adjusting. They're busy. It's not a good time. Eventually, there were no more responses at all. One evening, Elias walked into the girls' room. Everything was still there. The beds. The drawings. The small carved bird Ivy had kept beside her pillow. He picked it up. The wing was slightly chipped. He remembered when it broke. Ivy had cried. He fixed it. Told her. Some things don't need to be perfect to still be whole. He sat down slowly, holding it. For the first time in years, Elias cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Like a man who had already lost everything once. And somehow lost it all again. Years passed. Asheville Creek stayed the same. But Elias didn't. He worked. He kept going. But something in him had settled into a permanent kind of quiet. People still talked. They always did. Should have never tried. Wasn't his place. System did what it was supposed to. Elias never answered. Because none of them had been there. None of them had heard the words. You're safe tonight. 10 years later, the town changed. Not slowly. Not gently. But all at once. 6 black SUVs rolled into Asheville Creek. They didn't slow down. Didn't hesitate. They stopped right in front of Elias Grant's house. Doors opened. People stepped out. Sharp suits. Confident strides. The kind of presence the town wasn't used to. Neighbors came outside. Whispers spread fast. Who are they? What's going on? Elias stepped onto his porch. He didn't recognize them. Not at first. Then, one of them stepped forward. Lena, older now, stronger, but the same eyes, the same look. Mara stood beside her, calm, grounded. Ivy no longer small, but still holding something in her hand. Elias didn't move. Neither did they. Then Ivy broke first. She ran, straight toward him. You came back, she said, voice breaking. Elias caught her. I told you I would. If you've made it this far, don't stop now. Subscribe, because the ending of this story is something you'll never forget. Elias held Ivy like no time had passed. For a moment, the world outside that porch didn't exist. Not the neighbors. Not the whispers. Not the years. Just him. And the girl who used to wake up afraid of the dark. I missed you, Ivy said, her voice shaking against his chest. Elias closed his eyes. I never stopped waiting. When she pulled back, he saw it clearly. She wasn't the same little girl anymore. But the way she looked at him, that hadn't changed at all. Lena stepped forward next. Slower, measured, like she had carried 10 years of thoughts and was choosing each step carefully. You look the same, she said. Elias let out a quiet breath. You don't. Mara smirked slightly. That's a good thing. But her eyes were glossy. She wasn't as composed as she pretended. None of them were. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Then Elias asked the question that had lived inside him for a decade. Why now? Lena looked back at the SUVs, at the people waiting, then back at him. Because we're finally old enough to choose. That answer hit deeper than anything else. The town had already gathered. Asheville Creek didn't miss moments like this. People stood at a distance, watching, whispering. Elias noticed. Lena noticed too. That's why we didn't just come quietly, she said. Elias frowned slightly. What do you mean? Mara folded her arms. We didn't come back just to visit. Ivy smiled through tears. We came to fix something. Elias didn't understand yet, but he felt it coming. They walked into the house together. It looked almost exactly the same. Lena's eyes moved slowly across the room. You didn't change anything. Elias shrugged lightly. Didn't feel right to. Mara picked up one of the chairs. You even kept this broken thing? It still works, Elias replied. She shook her head, smiling. You haven't changed at all. Ivy moved straight to the small shelf near the wall. Her hand hovered, then picked up something. The carved wooden bird. The same one. The chipped wings still there. You kept it. Elias nodded. I told you, he said quietly. Some things don't need to be perfect to still be whole. Ivy held it close. And just like that, she started crying again. Lena turned back to Elias. We didn't come alone, she said. Elias glanced outside. The people in suits. The cameras. Now he noticed. This is bigger than a visit, isn't it? Lena nodded. Much bigger. Minutes later, the entire town stood gathered in front of Elias's house. Cameras were set. Microphones adjusted. The same people who once whispered now stood silent. Waiting. Lena stepped forward first. Confident. Composed. But her voice carried something deeper. Most of you know who we are, she began. And most of you know him. She gestured behind her. Elias stood still, uncomfortable with the attention. As always. But what you don't know, Lena continued, is what really happened 10 years ago. Murmurs spread. Mara stepped forward next. When we lost our parents, nobody wanted us, she said plainly. Not together. She let that sit. Except one man. Ivy walked up beside her. He didn't have money, she said softly. He didn't have a big house. She looked back at Elias. But he stayed. The crowd grew quiet. Really quiet. Lena's voice sharpened slightly. You judged him. Silence. You said he wasn't enough. Mara added. You said the system made the right choice. Ivy shook her head. But you were wrong. Elias shifted slightly behind them. He didn't like this. Didn't like being the center of something. But he couldn't move. Not now. Lena took a breath. Everything we are today started in that house. She pointed behind her. He taught us how to feel safe again. Mara nodded. He taught us how to fight. Ivy smiled through tears. He taught us what love actually looks like. The words hit the crowd differently now. Heavier. Real. Then Lena said something that changed everything. We're not here just to tell a story. Elias looked up. That was new. Mara stepped forward. We're here to build something. A man from the SUV approached, handing Lena a folder. She opened it, turned slightly so the cameras could see. We've acquired this entire block. Gasps, murmurs, confusion. Ivy stepped closer to Elias and held his hand. We're turning it into a place for kids like us. Lena's voice rose just enough. A place where siblings don't get separated because of money. Mara finished it. A place where love actually counts. Then Ivy said the name. The Grant House. Elias froze. No, he said immediately. No, you don't have to. We do, Lena said. You already gave us everything. The crowd shifted. People who once doubted him now looked away. Ashamed. Uncomfortable. But it wasn't about them anymore. Not really. Lena turned back to Elias. This isn't charity, she said. This is truth. Mara stepped closer. You didn't lose us. Ivy squeezed his hand. You raised us. Elias felt his throat tighten. I couldn't keep you, he said quietly. Lena shook her head. You did. She tapped her chest. Right here. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then something unexpected happened. One of the neighbors stepped forward. An older man. I was wrong, he said. Another voice followed. So was I. More voices. One after another. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just honest. And late. But still. Honest. Elias looked at the girls. The women now. Strong. Unbreakable. And somehow. Still his. I don't need all this, he said. Mara smirked. Too late. Ivy laughed softly. You don't get to say no this time. Lena stepped closer. But you do get to choose one thing. Elias raised an eyebrow slightly. What? She smiled. To stay. That word again. Stay. It had defined everything. Elias looked around. The house. The town. The girls. Then he nodded. I stayed before, he said. I'm not leaving now. The crowd broke into quiet applause. Not loud. Not forced. Just real. Later that evening, after the cameras were gone, after the town had settled, after the noise faded, Elias sat at the table again. But this time, it wasn't empty. Lena sat across from him. Mara leaned back in her chair. Ivy sat closest, still holding the wooden bird. For plates. All filled. All used. Ivy looked at him. Say it, she whispered. Elias smiled softly. You're safe tonight. She nodded. And for the first time in 10 years, so was he. If the story touched you, don't just scroll away. Like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And comment stayed below. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a person can do is stay. The house didn't feel like a memory anymore. It felt alive. Voices filled every corner. Laughter echoed off walls that had been silent for years. The same table that once held untouched plates now carried stories, interruptions, and overlapping conversations that refused to end. Mara leaned back, balancing her chair on two legs. So you're telling me you never fixed the heater? Elias raised an eyebrow. It works. It barely works. It works enough. Lena shook her head, smiling faintly. Some things never change. Ivy leaned closer to Elias. We'll fix it. He glanced at her. We. She nodded. We don't leave things broken anymore. That line settled quietly in the room. Elias looked at each of them, really looked. They weren't the same girls who had walked into his house all those years ago. But somehow they were still exactly those girls. The next morning, Asheville Creek woke up differently. News had spread beyond the town overnight. Cars lined the streets. People came from nearby cities. Reporters stood outside the house again, hoping for more. Elias stepped out onto the porch, squinting slightly at the sudden noise. Mara joined him, arms folded. You're famous now. He gave her a look. That's not funny. I'm serious, she said. People love stories like this. Elias shook his head. They didn't love it before. Mara didn't argue, because she knew he was right. Inside, Lena stood with a man in a suit going over documents. We'll start construction within a month, the man said. Funding is already secured. Lena nodded. And staffing? We have a list of candidates. I want people who understand trauma, she said firmly. Not just people with degrees. The man paused, then nodded again. Understood. Ivy watched from the doorway. You sound like him, she said. Lena looked up. What do you mean? You don't just say things, Ivy replied. You mean them. Lena glanced outside, where Elias stood. Yeah, she said quietly. I learned that from him. By afternoon, the town had gathered again. Not because of cameras this time, because of curiosity, and something else. Something that felt like respect. Elias didn't step forward this time. He stayed back, watching, listening, letting the girls speak, because they had something to say. Mara stood in front of the crowd, hands in her pockets. I used to think strength meant not needing anyone, she said. A few people nodded. I was wrong. She looked around slowly. Strength is staying when it's hard. Her eyes found Elias. He stayed. Lena followed. The system didn't fail us because it was broken, she said. It failed us because it couldn't measure what mattered. Silence. Love isn't something you can put on paper, she continued. But it's the only thing that actually builds a family. Then Ivy stepped forward. She didn't raise her voice, didn't try to command attention. She didn't need to. When I was little, I used to wake up scared every night, she said softly. The crowd leaned in. And every night, he would come sit beside me. Elias looked down slightly. He would say the same thing over and over. She paused, then smiled. You're safe tonight. The words hit the crowd like a wave. If you're still here, take a second, like the video, because moments like this are rare, and you're witnessing something real. Later that day, something unexpected happened. Evelyn Drake arrived. No cameras, no announcement, just her car pulling quietly into the same street she once walked down with certainty. Mara saw her first. Well, she muttered. Look who decided to show up. Lena's expression hardened slightly. Ivy didn't say anything. Elias stepped forward. Not to confront, not to argue, just to stand. Evelyn stepped out of the car. She looked different, still composed, still controlled, but not untouchable. Not this time. I heard about the project, she said. Lena crossed her arms. You mean the one we're building? Yes. Mara tilted her head. You didn't come to stop it, did you? Evelyn shook her head. No. That alone shifted the air. Evelyn looked at Elias. For what it's worth, you did more than I thought possible. Elias didn't respond. Not immediately, because he remembered everything. The courtroom, the silence, the loss. Finally, he said, they needed someone. They had someone, Evelyn replied. Elias shook his head slightly. Not the same. Evelyn didn't argue, because she knew. Ivy stepped forward. You didn't let us see him. Evelyn looked at her. I thought it would make things easier. It didn't, Ivy said. Evelyn's voice softened slightly. I see that now. Mara exhaled. That's 10 years too late. Yes, Evelyn admitted. And that honesty, it mattered. Not enough to erase the past, but enough to change the moment. Lena stepped in. You can't undo what happened. I know, Evelyn said, but I can acknowledge it. Lena studied her, then nodded once. That's a start. Elias watched the exchange quietly. He didn't need apologies. He didn't need validation. He had something better. He had them. That evening, construction plans were laid out across the table. Blueprints, ideas, visions. The Grant house was no longer just an idea. It was real. Mara pointed at one section. This should be a shared space. For what? Elias asked. For families, she said. To stay together. Ivy added. And a room just for kids who can't sleep. Elias smiled slightly. Why that? She held up the wooden bird. So someone can sit with them. Until they're okay. Lena looked at Elias. You'll help us run it. It wasn't a question. Elias leaned back slightly. I don't know anything about running something like this. Mara smirked. You raised 3 kids with nothing. Ivy nodded. You know everything. Lena said it clearly. We don't need perfect. Elias glanced at the bird again, then back at them. Just someone who stays, she finished. Elias exhaled slowly, then nodded. I can do that. The house grew quieter as night fell. But this time it wasn't empty. It was peaceful. The kind of quiet that comes after something finally feels right. Ivy sat beside Elias again, just like before. Different time. Same feeling. Say it, she whispered. Elias smiled. You're safe tonight. She leaned against him. And this time, he believed it too. The next few weeks moved faster than anything Elias had experienced in years. But for once, fast didn't feel like losing control. It felt like building something. Every morning, the same street that once whispered about him now filled with workers, trucks, and voices calling out measurements and plans. The empty lots beside his house were cleared, marked, and reshaped into something that finally had direction. Elias stood at the edge of it all, hands in his pockets, watching. Mara walked up beside him, wiping dust from her hands. You're doing that thing again. What thing? Standing there like you're not part of this. Elias glanced at her. I'm still getting used to it. She smirked. Well, get used to it faster. This doesn't happen without you. He didn't argue, but he didn't fully accept it either. Not yet. Inside the house, Lena sat with a group of coordinators. We don't want this to feel like a facility, she said firmly. No cold walls. No strict silence. This has to feel like a home. One of them nodded. Understood. What about intake procedures? Lena didn't hesitate. No separating siblings. Ever. A pause. That could limit placements, someone said. It will, Lena replied. But we're not here to make things easier for the system. We're here to make things better for the kids. Across the room, Ivy listened quietly. Then she added, and every child gets checked on at night. They looked at her. Why? One asked. Ivy smiled faintly. Because sometimes, that's the only moment they feel safe. Outside, the town kept watching. But something had shifted. People weren't just watching anymore. They were helping. An older woman brought food for the workers. A man who had once doubted Elias now volunteered his time fixing fencing. Even the ones who had said nothing before now found small ways to show up. Not loud, not dramatic, just different. One afternoon, Elias walked through the frame of what would soon become the main building. The walls weren't up yet, just beams, open space, possibility. He paused in the center, looked around, and for a moment, he saw it. Not what it was, but what it would be. Children running, voices echoing, laughter, safety. He exhaled slowly. You built this, Lena said behind him. Elias shook his head. No, you did. She stepped closer. We just continued it. If you've made it this far, don't just watch, subscribe, like, and comment stayed below. Because this story isn't just about one man. It's about what happens when someone refuses to leave. As the weeks turned into months, the Grant house took shape. Walls went up. Rooms formed. Windows let light in where there had once been nothing. And through it all, Elias was there. Not leading from the front. Not standing above anyone. Just present. Helping where needed. Listening more than speaking. Staying. The opening day came quietly. No grand spectacle. No overwhelming noise. Just the town gathered again. But this time, there was no tension. No doubt. Only understanding. Lena stood at the entrance. Mara leaned against the railing. Ivy held the wooden bird again. Elias stood slightly behind them, exactly where he felt comfortable. The ribbon stretched across the doorway. Simple. Uncomplicated. Lena looked at Elias. You should do it. He shook his head. No. Mara raised an eyebrow. Still doing that thing again? Ivy smiled. It's okay to be seen now. Elias hesitated, then stepped forward. Slowly, he held the scissors, looked at the building, then at them. You ready? He asked. Lena nodded. Mara smirked. Always. Ivy whispered. We've been ready. Elias cut the ribbon. The doors opened, and for the first time, kids walked in. Not alone. Together. Siblings holding hands. Eyes uncertain, but hopeful. Elias watched them, and something in his chest settled in a way it hadn't in years. Not because everything was perfect, but because something was right. Later that evening, the house was quieter again. Not empty. Never empty. Just calm. The kind of calm that follows purpose. They sat at the table again. Same 4 seats. Same people. Different life. Mara leaned back. So what now? Elias shrugged slightly. Now we keep going. Lena nodded. There are more kids. Ivy added softly. More nights. Elias looked at her. She smiled. More people who need to hear it. He understood. That night, as the lights dimmed and the house settled, a small knock came at Elias's door. He opened it. A young boy stood there, nervous, unsure. Can you stay for a bit? The boy asked. Elias didn't hesitate. Of course. He walked him back to his room, sat beside him, just like he had done years ago. Same position, same quiet, different child, same need. The boy looked up. Will I be okay? Elias smiled softly. You're safe tonight. And this time, it wasn't just a promise. It was a place. Elias stepped out of the room later and paused in the hallway. He could hear soft breathing. Doors closed. Lives beginning again. He looked down the hall, then back at the room, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a man who had lost everything. He felt like a man who had stayed long enough to see what staying could build. If the story touched you, don't just scroll away. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and comment stayed below. Because in a world where people leave, the ones who stay change everything. And Elias Grant? He stayed. And because he did, 3 girls found a home. A town found the truth. And countless others found a place where they would never be separated again.